Whoa! Can't show you this immediately. That would defeat the entire object of this video. Welcome back. You've seen last video that I was preparing my 30-litre Dennerle Nano cube, and today is the day that I show you me scaping that very tank. I just want to talk you through firstly my plans for that tank. So as you'll see about here, I always plan a tank by drawing it out quickly on the computer, having a little think about what I want it to look like, think about the dimensions and think about the perspective, etc., and just draw it out, a rough kind of sketch, which is never exactly kept to, but nonetheless is a good kind of base to kind of inspire the scape. And then from there, I just get on with it. So essentially, this tank is all about using the grass from the upstairs tank. It's going to go to waste otherwise when I rescape that for my Malawi cichlids. And then combining that with some really nice hardscape that I got recently in the local fish shop. It's a black lava rock. I'm pretty confident that you're going to enjoy what's underneath this yellow towel. It does look really cool, trust me. So please enjoy the time lapse of me scaping, and I will see you at the end of the video. And if you haven't already, remember to hit the subscribe button. And Hardscape.
So this tank is all about the hardscape, really. I got this really nice black lava rock in a local fish shop. It was a lot bigger than it is now, and I had to do a lot of smashing to make it into the smaller chunks that you can see here. And I even had to get the drill out at one point and drill some of it. And it ended up with one bit of rock that has a hole in it, which will come in useful later on in the scape. Started the scape by putting some polystyrene down to protect the base from any cracks, and then I made sure that the edges were filled with sand so that you can't see the polystyrene through the glass. Once I got a nice layer of polystyrene and sand, I was then able to start putting the first bits of lava rock in. I had to play about with this quite a while because it was hard to kind of get the right base rocks in place. I'm trying essentially to build this tank up from the bottom right to the top right, going via the left middle. So I needed a high rock right in front of the filter enclosure. I needed a really high rock right to the back right. And then the idea was to build a bridge between the two rocks. And I'd already identified the rocks needed to go at the top there. In fact, that's me playing with it there. But I needed to work out how best to build the rest of the rocks up in order to support those two rocks that were going to support the bridge. So once I was happy that I had the right base rocks in place, I was able to start filling up the edges with some aquarium soil and then some aqua soil. And then I plugged all of the gaps in the rocks with some filter floss in order to stop any of the soil going into the sand and then ultimately ending up potentially in the water column. Plugged lots of gaps and made sure that there was nothing that was going to happen along those lines. And then I started to build the base back up again, the rocks back up again, and ensure that there was all the gaps were filled with aqua soil on both of the edges, which are going to be quite heavily planted. At this point I'm still kind of playing about with what rock I think is going to work, and there I have the very quick kind of look at the bridge, the first kind of attempt at making the bridge. And now I fill with sand in the middle and get my trusty toothbrush that's attached to some tweezers and start to make sure that all the sand goes into all the gaps, because one thing we know about sand is it can get into all the nooks and crannies, and especially once the water is filled it will just find its way everywhere. So you need to really push the water into all the gaps so that you actually have some sand left once you put the water in. And I'm trying to kind of continually pull the sand up from the bottom right to the top right via the left middle in order to constantly get that kind of effect of perspective, really high at the back, quite low at the front. So I had loads of grass upstairs in the main tank, and this is all going to go to waste unless I use it somewhere else. This grass was purchased from Pets at Home probably about 18 months ago, and I believe it was Tropica grass. It's spread out quite well, it's really propagated, so I decided to try and just remove all of it from this tank, and I have used most of it in this scape. So here I am just very quickly removing all of the grass and creating a massive mess as I do that. It doesn't really matter because this tank is going to get rescaped fairly soon. I did soak the grass for a little while in a solution of snail poison from Escher, just to make sure that there was no snails kind of ending up in this aquarium, and if they do end up in this aquarium then they won't be alive anymore. Then I just set about making sure that I got rid of any of the kind of dead looking leaves, just tidied them up a little bit, gave the roots a little bit of a trim. Some of the roots were massive, and then started to plant. Now the idea of this tank is it is going to be a one plant scape, so I really wanted to quite heavily plant the grass. So I'm trying to kind of really pack it into all of the nooks and crannies around this tank. And then the beautiful thing about having drilled one of the rocks whilst I was trying to smash it up was it meant that I had this one space you can see on the left there, the left middle, where I could plant a piece of grass into the middle of the rock, and I think it looks pretty cool. And because of the way that you're drawing the perspective up from the bottom right to the left middle and then up to the top right, it meant that you're drawn to that kind of rock quite prominently. So I really think it works quite well to have a bit of grass kind of just escaping out of the middle of the rock. So almost done with all the planting now. There was quite a lot of grass to go in here, and I still had a little bit left over which can be used in another scape. So now I just checked that the bridge was going to work, and then I sort of got all the sand into place once more, made sure I was happy with the way the sand was looking before ultimately super gluing the bridge together. And here you go, the scape without any water. I'm sure you'll agree that it doesn't look too bad, eh? But now the fun comes when I start to fill with water. So I started to fill with water, and lots of the sand started to move forward, almost like an avalanche. This was not helping the perspective that I was trying to achieve whatsoever. I was essentially just having a really kind of flat kind of sand effect, and you could see lots of the filter enclosure at the back as well, and that's not what I was intending whatsoever. So I built these little plastic supports out of some old plastic box, same plastic box I'd used for the corner filters in the other tanks. These are little right angles, you can see one circled there, little right angles of plastic that meant that I could prop them into the sand, and then the sand would push back on them, and they would not come any further forward, so the avalanche couldn't happen again. Once I had these in place, I then had to bring all the sand forward, or back rather, from the front to the back, and kind of get that perspective all over again. And I had to spend quite a lot of time, as you can see, doing this, because the sand really had moved forward quite significantly once I started to put the first bit of water in. You can see at the front there was loads of sand, and I really had to push this all the way back up the scape, and indeed get the teaspoon out at one point and fill it from the front to the back. So once I was happy that the sand was pushed back all the way up to the top, giving that perspective once more, I was able to then refill with water up to the very top. Once the tank was full, just had to do one last little bit of tidying up with my trusty toothbrush. And here you go.
Not bad, eh? Really, really happy the way this turned out, and I'm sure you'll agree that it looks pretty bloody awesome. So I will leave you now with some panning shots of this tank in the darkness. I got a new gimbal recently, been playing about with lots of new gadgets on the camera work, which I'm sure you'll agree is a big step forward for this channel. And the next time I see you, I'll probably be stocking this very tank. So I'll leave you now with the panning shots, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.